Hi everyone and welcome back to For Teachers. I know it's been a long time since I posted a video on this channel, but I think that Christmas time is a very special and sort of sacred time for primary school teachers. It's the time of year where we get to sort of bed down, hibernate, spend time with people we've not seen in a while, and I think it's really good and really refreshing to take some time off teaching and take some time off everything to do with education in general. Over Christmas I've been watching the view count for this channel and I've noticed that there's a lot of new subscribers here on For Teachers. If you are new to the channel, my name is Katie. I'm a primary school teacher from the UK and I'm currently working internationally in Hong Kong. Today I'm going to share with you my 14 New Year resolutions for my classroom in the upcoming year 2019. I know that 14 is a strange number, but I had more than 10 and less than 20, and 14 is my favourite number, so I thought that would be a really good way for me to share all of my ideas. I'm not going to be too strict on myself and say that I have to stick to all 14 of these, and I might only be able to maintain about 5 or 6 of them, but I thought it'd be really nice for me to have a think about all the different things I want to try and do more this year. Resolution number 1. I want to give the students in my class more opportunities to create the lessons that I end up teaching them. I'm going to listen really carefully to their ideas, their suggestions, what are they interested in at the moment, anything that they seem to be talking about in the playground or really interested in. I'm going to try and bring that into my classroom a bit more often and try and base a lot of my lessons around that. I think the students will feel a lot of ownership that way, and it will make them feel as though they're involved in the lesson creation process a lot more. I'm also going to listen really carefully to the questions that they're coming up with in class and see if I can use those questions to inspire my own planning. The second resolution that I'm going to try and stick to this year is keeping a diary. I've been really good in the past. I've kept a diary for almost every year that I've been teaching so far, so I do have 3 more of these somewhere knocking around. And just recently I found that I can't really keep this up. I've sort of not been making a note of things in there. I've not been making a note of what I've done that day or what's inspired me on that day. And I feel really unorganised when I don't fill out my diary. So I'm going to try and make it my resolution when I get to school in the morning, just take the first 5 minutes to myself, calm time, maybe put some music on, just write down in my diary what I've done that day, what my plans are for the day. It makes me feel really calm and organised, and it just sets me up to have a really good day with the students. You could also consider letting your students keep journals or diaries, and then you can have some diary writing time all together where you fill yours out and they fill theirs out. I feel quite confident about that resolution. I think I'm going to be able to stick to that one because it's definitely something that's been missing from my routine that I want to get back in as soon as possible. My next resolution that I'm really keen to try and get done in my class a whole lot more is linking up with other classes and inviting students from their classes to do projects with the students in my class. I used to do this a lot in the school I worked at back in Manchester, but I feel like it's something that I've not utilised properly recently. Myself and one of the Year 5 teachers from my current school decided to do a reading swap the other day. So some of her students were reading with my younger students, and it was the most amazing, beautiful, calm, inspiring half an hour. All the Year 5 students read beautifully with the younger students, whether that meant reading to them and modelling reading, or whether it meant listening to the Year 3 or the younger students reading and helping them with the words. It was just the loveliest atmosphere. It was so nice to see the students connecting with a child that wasn't in their class normally. It was really nice to see them getting support with their reading from someone that isn't just me or a teaching assistant, someone different for a change. There's always going to be a lot of students in your class that sort of read a book upside down and they pretend they're reading, or they just turn the pages or just look at the pictures during a quiet reading time and they don't really connect with the story. And I think if you do a reading swap with another class, you will find that the students are so much more engaged and they really do concentrate on reading a lot more. If that's something you haven't tried before, I think you should try it. In my old school, I taught a Year 5 class and we used to read with the Year 2s. So the Year 2s would come up and the Year 5s would read to them and help them with some of the words, and it was so nice. I'm definitely going to try and make better use of collaboration this year and allow the students time to work with different ages as well. New Year's resolution number 4 is to listen to more educational podcasts. Now I know that might sound like more work for you, especially when you've gone to school and you've done all your work and your planning, then you've done all your marking, and then you're travelling back home and the last thing you want to listen to is a podcast about teaching. But in the same way that you're listening to this video right now and maybe finding some of the advice useful, I have been finding educational podcasts really useful recently. Some of them are only 20 minutes long, and my bus journey is actually an hour, so I still have plenty of time to go on my Instagram and watch videos. It doesn't feel like a huge chunk of it. I found some really interesting things out. And recently I went for a job interview for a school, and I think I did really well because I had some new information that I'd learned from these podcasts. It made for a really interesting discussion with the people that were on the panel. My advice would definitely be try and choose a few, just listen to them maybe on the way to work if you have a commute. You don't need to do it every day. I think I was aiming for sort of one a week for the time being, and I was finding that the information that I learned in the podcasts, I was much more likely to apply to my lessons when I got into school immediately. So if I listened to something that had a tip about behaviour management, I would get into work and I would straight away have a go at using it and trying it. So it was really inspiring for me, and I found it to be really helpful. So try not to imagine it as more homework, try to imagine it as your own professional development that you've sort of selected or chosen yourself, and have a little go and see if you enjoy it. I will pop some links down below to some of the podcasts that I've been listening to recently. Have a listen, see if you enjoy them, let me know if you do, and if you have any recommendations for other podcasts that people might enjoy listening to, please post them down below in the comments. The next resolution I'm going to talk about is something that was advised to me over on the 4 Teachers Instagram page. Now, this person told me that while their class are doing quiet reading time for maybe 20 minutes, they've been picking up a book and reading a book themselves. I know that as a teacher, you might think to yourself, if there's 20 minutes of quiet, that's a really good time to pull some students over and do some reading with them, or it's really good time to quickly get something prepared for the next lesson, or maybe just tidy up somewhere in your room. However, I do really like the idea of picking up a book myself, having a little read, having a bit of calm time and reflection time myself while my students are doing it. The logic is that it models really good reading, and it shows that adults still read for enjoyment as well, and it's not just us telling students all the time that they should read books for some reason. So I'm going to try and do this. I don't know if realistically I'll be able to do it all the time, just because I'm always sort of thinking ahead. I'm always thinking about the next lesson, or I'm always thinking about what I could be doing while the students are getting things done. But I do really want to have a go at doing it maybe once or twice a week. So I have some books I'm going to take into school. I'm going to try my hardest to read while the students are reading. It might be really good for me to just relax during that time and switch off for a minute in the same way that the students sort of get into the zone. So I'm going to try it. Hopefully I enjoy it as well. Hopefully it's something that I can keep up. Not entirely sure if I can do it long term, but who knows, it might become my favourite part of the day. It might become part of what I do as a teacher. I might be unable to unwrite this from my ethos soon, so let's have a go. My next resolution is I'm going to try really hard not to rush my work and rush my teaching if the students are still struggling with something, or if they're still really enjoying something on the other side. Sometimes if you're teaching something, you will block in a few weeks. So you might say to yourself, I'm doing 2D and 3D shapes for 2 weeks, and that's when you've decided you're doing it. When you get to the end of the 2 weeks, it's time to go on to measurement, and you've decided that inside your head. Of course, that's really important because you need to make sure that you're covering whatever your curriculum demands for your students. However, I think I'm going to try really hard if my students are still really absorbed in a unit, or if they haven't got enough out of it yet, I'm going to hang back. I'm going to keep them on something for a little bit longer if I think that I should. For example, they've really enjoyed that unit on 2D and 3D shapes, and they're itching to do a little bit more. I'm going to start thinking, right, well, I'm going to think practically. I'm going to get them outside and maybe do some outdoor lessons that link with this and extend it if it feels like I should. But of course, on the other hand, if students complete something really quickly and it's kind of done and they kind of understood it and you feel confident that it's time to move on, I wouldn't hang back and sort of wait for the 2 weeks to run out so it's time for the new unit. I think you should just get on with it, really. If you teach something like coordinates and they've got their head around it in 3-4 lessons, I don't think there's any point in extending that for the second week. If they've already achieved a level of mastery with that, and you've worked with your groups that haven't, and you've kind of given that block of input, I would hang fire and wait until the end of the term maybe, and you can revisit it, but don't hold back if it feels like the right time to go on to something new. The next one is something that I've probably done over the last 6 years pretty consistently, and I'm going to try and do less, and that's talking myself and not allowing the students more time to talk than me. I think I read somewhere that it should be an 80-20 split. The student should be doing more talk than the teacher, and the teacher should just be offering the odd insight or furthering a question and letting the students discuss more and using their ideas more than your own. So I'm going to try that myself. I'm going to try and take a step back a bit more. I have got much better at this over the years anyway. I do let the students take control of their own learning a lot, and there's a lot of questions being asked in class and a lot of student discussion, but I'm going to try again, maybe just refresh this one. You know, try not to give the answers and try not to offer all the answers, especially during a sort of carpet session when you're sat with the students and it's really tempting just to tell them the answer because they're not coming up with it. Try and take a step back and let them figure things out for themselves, because I know that that's when the best learning happens and that's when they enjoy their learning the most. My next resolution is to record more YouTube videos. I know that I've taken a couple of weeks off and I hope you guys don't mind that. I've been resting up. I've had a bit of a tough time recently, lots of things going on, and I've just been finding it really hard to maintain my workload. But I've still been reading all of your suggestions. I'm reading all of your comments and your messages. I love your suggestions. I know that lots of you have been asking for videos about things like personal statements. And I really want to make a video about personal statements for getting into university. However, I just feel like it's been sort of 9-10 years since I wrote a personal statement myself. A lot of things have changed within education. I don't feel completely up to date with what they probably expect back at university, so I want to do some more research for that one before I put that video together for you, but it is on my list, and there are lots of other things on my list too, because I do listen and I do want to create more content for you this year. Making the videos is of course time consuming, and I am a full-time teacher myself, but I do have lots of amazing ideas and lots of projects planned that I want to get to you guys soon, so thank you for supporting the channel. If you are someone who is a school teacher and you're thinking of creating a channel, maybe now is a really good time to do it, because the January-February term is the term that the students are really focused, and maybe you might be able to, you know, use a bit more of your free time for a project you've been thinking about doing. So just a thought. For Teachers was actually created in January, February, March of last year. That's obviously a good time to be creating things. Maybe if you are thinking of doing something, it might be a good time to try it. Let me know if you do. The next thing I'm going to try and do a little bit more is more watching before I act. For an example, I would say I'm going to try and watch what my students are doing and try not to go and correct it automatically, and just observe and see if they self-correct. I'm going to have to explain. So for example, the other day I was watching some of my students. They were doing some writing, and for a minute the focus was broken, so the students started having a bit of a chat, and pencils were put down, and they just seemed to have lost the zone for a minute. And I think normally maybe I would be like sat nearby with a group and I would say, oh, come on, like pick your pencil back up and get on with your work, or maybe like compliment the other students around the room, and all these things that use up like your own personal energy. So I decided to wait for a minute and I just watched, and less than a minute went by and the students picked up their pencils again and they just started continuing with the work. So if I just hang fire a little bit, I think I'm going to see more self-correction happening. I don't have to be there all the time observing and watching and saying, come on, sit up, do your work, pull your chair under. Like, there's so many different things that I would sort of tiny little nags or like reminders for students that I don't think I need to do. I think I need to have a bit more trust in my class. I think I need to observe more, and if I need to go over and say to a child, oh, are you okay? Are you understanding? How can we help you to refocus? Maybe I'll do that, but I think I'm going to be really conscious of tiny little nags and try to eliminate that by watching and trusting a little bit more. My next resolution is something that I've already achieved, and that is have a switch around of furniture. I have managed to make my classroom look so much nicer just by shifting out some furniture that was taking up more room than it was really valuable for. I've shifted some cabinets out, I've moved my bookcases around, I've asked the students to keep their books inside their tables rather than making a big book pile that just always looks a bit messy, and you know, so much time is used with the students handing books out, and I think it's better that they've kind of got them by themselves now, because they've got time if they want to look through them or if they want to reflect on a piece of work. It's easier for me to say, you know, get your maths book out and have a look, than me saying go and look through the massive pile of books and find your book. You know, that can take students a really long time to do. I've put some more energy into my reading area. I'm trying to brighten it up a bit and get the students somewhere to sit that's a bit cozier. I also asked the students for their input with the arrangement of the classroom. I think it's really important to give the students their own ownership of the room. I think when they feel like they've had some ownership and some control over where the tables are and the bookshelves, they feel like it's their classroom a bit more, and I think it's made me feel really refreshed. I don't know if I've just got like the feng shui right, but I feel like the layout of my classroom is really good at the moment. I really like where the tables are, and I really like the seats that I've got. Maybe you would be interested in a video about how I arrange the tables, because I change it all the time and I've tried everything. Maybe I could do a video on that, I don't know. Let me know if that would be useful, but I feel like I've nailed it this time. I just really like the spaces that I've got, and I feel like it's opened the room up a lot, and it's a really good learning environment. And maybe consider ordering some new resources or some nice pieces of furniture for your classroom if your school is able to provide that, because it will brighten up the place for 2019. The next thing I'm going to try and do is to provide less resources for the students when I don't need to provide the resources for the students. I know that printing is not great. It's not good to do 30 sets every single time you need a new lesson. It's not good to be laminating all the time, but I also know that you do need some printed resources for the students. But recently I've tried to sort of think to myself, can I just give them a few images, ring a little bell and the students move from table to table, rather than providing a set of said images for each group. I've tried to be really savvy with the students doing their own research, rather than me giving them a timeline activity where they order the images and stick on the times that I've given them. I've tried to make it very based, like I give them some images, they can then research the image, find out the time themselves, and just try and make it more student focused, because I think I was providing too many resources for my class, and that's not good either. It's good for them to be discovering by themselves and finding the answers by themselves as well. So I'm going to try and reel it back in even more in 2019, give them less, but allow them to put the words into the work a little bit more, I think. I am down to my final 2 resolutions for 2019. Resolution number 13 is going to be sharing more of my personal life with the students in order to inspire them to share more about their lives with the rest of the class. Recently, I showed a photograph of my family over Christmas time to my class, and I was really surprised with the response, because the students noticed straight away that in the background of our family picture, which I hadn't even noticed or thought about, there was a staircase leading up to the top floor of our house. And they were amazed, because they were saying, you live in a house and that's amazing, you have stairs going up. And at first I wasn't too sure what they were on about, but then I remembered that in Hong Kong most students live in flats, so for them to see a house with stairs was quite a fascinating concept for them. They just didn't, some of them might not have ever been in semi-detached house in the outskirts of Manchester. That's just something that they haven't seen before. So that triggered a really nice discussion about where people live around the world, and fed in really nicely to the unit of inquiry that we were looking at. I also found that after I shared some of my own Christmas photos of where I had been, I started getting emails from the parents of the students, sending in some of their holiday photos to show to the class. One student brought in a book with all the photographs inside. Hopefully, if you share more of your own personal life with the students, they'll start wanting to bring things in and talk about their own experiences, and it's been really nice to allow them the chance to do that. It's like a show and tell, but it's more a show where I've been and tell, and it's been really nice. The final resolution that I'm going to try and do a little bit more this year, or something that I want to put in place in my classroom, is I want to try and think a little bit more about myself when I was a primary school student. I want to try and imagine what year 3 Katie was like. Would I have been focused all the time? Probably not. Would I have been able to control my behaviour the whole time and stay on the green? And if I'd had issues in the classroom, like how would I have dealt with them? What would have been really helpful for the teachers to have done to help support me? So I've been listening to a podcast recently that's really uplifting and really inspiring. It's called Over and On With It with Christine Hassler. She gives a really good insight about how you should start thinking about the child version of yourself and try and look after yourself a little bit more, in the sense that we are just grown-up students at the end of the day, and the students in my class will grow up to be my age at some point, and I can look back on my own childhood and think, how would I have learnt best? how will my students learn in a different way to how I might have done as a child myself. And I'm going to try and be more aware of that and think really carefully about how I'm going to inspire the students in my class based on what I might have liked and what I might have not responded well to. That might have been a bit rambly, but basically I think I'm going to try and get a photograph of myself in year 3 and maybe have it on my desk or just somewhere in the classroom. Like, I'll show the students, they can see it, they'll know that it's me. And maybe just have that as a reminder that we are just grown-up students ourselves. We're still allowed to be inspired, we're still allowed to have questions, and we're still allowed to have a lot of fun as well. And hopefully that will bring me back down to earth. If I'm ever feeling any stress, I'll just sort of look at it and I'll think, you know, like, it's time to go and sit with my students or play a game with my students, and we are allowed to have good days and bad days, and we are allowed to be inspired. I hope that you have found this very long resolutions video to be helpful in some way. Please follow 4Teachers on Instagram and leave me a comment down below letting me know what your resolution for 2019 is. Please comment them down below so that other teachers can see them and get inspired by them. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again next time.